Obviously, in the last few months, we have seen quite a shift in our world. Our day-to-day lives are vastly different, and the way many of us live and work has changed. Companies around the globe are adjusting to this new normal, and they're trying to navigate how to not only manage their workforces and provide the necessary technology and productivity tools, but more importantly, to ensure their employees' well-being. On this special episode of IT Visionaries, we brought in two tech leaders, Julie Cullivan, the Chief People and Technology Officer at ForeScout Technologies, and Sarah Franklin, the Executive Vice President and GM of Platform, Trailhead, and Developers at Salesforce, who discussed how they are navigating through these unprecedented times. Things are hard, there's no doubt about it. But as both women say, when you put the human element first, have empathy for others, and keep a positive attitude, we can all make it through this together. Enjoy this conversation. IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform. This podcast is created by the team at mission.org.
Welcome to another episode of IT Visionaries. I'm Ian Faison, host of IT Visionaries, and today we have a two-part special edition, or two-person, I should say, interview, a virtual roundtable, as it were. First off, Julie, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Multi-time guest coming back for our emergency pod here to talk about everything that is going on in the world and how leaders and technology leaders can help deal with this. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Ian. And very excited to be here to talk about this very important topic right now.
Indeed. It has been a whirlwind, past couple of weeks. Obviously, tragedies abound with the coronavirus and everything being an extremely difficult time, people losing their jobs, obviously, loss of life and sickness and all of that. And, we've been talking to our audience, to guests. And one of the things that is pretty clear right now is that we want to be able to learn from our peers and see what other people are doing, how people are dealing with this, how people are, managing employee experience during a 100% digital workforce now and all of that. So we're going to get into a bunch of that into this episode. I want to start off, Sarah, with you. What are some of the things that Salesforce is doing right now, that you're doing right now as a leader to kind of deal with the crisis?
Yeah, so Salesforce is doing a lot of things. And first and foremost is, making sure all of our employees are safe and healthy, and, putting their safety above everything. Myself, I'm a mother of two daughters, and I know that, I don't have kids at school any longer. So that's an adjustment that I've had to make as an employee. And Salesforce is doing everything they can to help support me as an employee. Next is our customers. Making sure we're connected to our customers, we're staying connected to them through constant communication, and helping our communities, whether it's giving back through philanthropic efforts, with our service, with our technology, with our volunteering, we're giving back. And it's a lot of just the basics that are helping right now, standing up a command center with daily communications, and personalized communications, like recording a video, and just asking people how they're doing. They're doing a lot to help take care of our employees, our customers, and our community.
Julie, what about you?
Yeah, I would say very similar. We certainly don't have the size and scale and reach that a Salesforce has. We're a much smaller organization, but I think we're prioritizing things in the exact same order. We are, first and foremost, super not concerned, but engage with our employees to make sure that they know that they have the support they need, because this is way beyond just working remote. This is now working with, coworkers that have 4 legs and 2 legs, and, are suddenly part of conversations and videos and meetings because they are part of the team now, because everyone's working from home. And then clearly we were in a good position to be able to very quickly pivot to be able to support our customers in the security space, right, our customers need to make sure that the technologies that they are using to secure their employees and their infrastructure is up and running and working, and that there are actually some services we can provide to them to help them as they transition to a more remote workforce, because not every organization works that way today. And then certainly making sure that we're doing right by the communities that we live in and taking care of the people that are close to us.
When you have, the increased responsibilities of of being the chief people officer in addition to being CTO, I'm curious. It almost feels like at this kind of moment in time that CIOs have such a ownership over, the digital workforce, that it seems appropriate that you, being both of those roles, that it's like, the technologist and the people officer, together in one person seems like it might make sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly got some advantages, right? Because I'm able to look and take action across a broader set of perspectives. I mean, I will say that I feel like this transition to a remote workforce is something that most CIOs have been planning for without knowing it for a long time, right? Because of all the new technologies that are available, and the fact that having some sort of business continuity strategy in place and all those kind of things are things that CIOs are always talking about. I think where, I'm having to put a lot of energy right now is making sure that we're looking at the people side of, suddenly working remote and being isolated in some cases. And, thinking about the mental health of employees as they go through this transition. And admittedly, it hasn't been a long period of time, but none of us are exactly sure how long this is going to go on, and how do we make sure that we're taking care of our employees beyond just providing them the productivity tools that they need in order to be able to do their work.
Yeah, Sarah, when you look at your employees and kind of that internal employee experience, what have been some of the things that you've tried to do, from the moment that we all, I mean, in California specifically, we got it way earlier than other folks in terms of like, shelter in place and everybody kind of working from home. But as soon as that kind of came down, what were some of the things that you were thinking about? What were you working on to try to make sure that people could continue to, be safe first and foremost, but also, be productive and do the things that, they work at companies to do?
It's a great question, because it is a very human reaction, yeah, that happened just a few weeks ago or a week ago. I can't remember now. It seems so long. And the first thing you ask is oh my gosh, how is everybody? You go to the human side first, and you want to think how can I help everybody? How can I make sure everyone's safe? And then you do go into some solutioning. Well, what can our technology do to help people? What can we do? And what's interesting to me is that it's some very basic things that have been the most helpful right now. Because it's interesting when you listen to everybody, there's two words that a lot of people use, which is right now. People are living in the now more than ever. And we've gone from planning the future to planning really the right now for everyone. And so from an employee experience perspective, you make sure that you have those communication channels up. You make sure that you have a community. You set up the tasks force so that people know how to communicate with each other in an orderly way. As I mentioned earlier, just doing something like recording a video and sharing it. Or we've seen people use technologies like Zoom and Hangout to have virtual coffees and they've done jam sessions where they play tunes for each other. And there is very much a need to be there for each other and to have a very human reaction. So I say the human reaction was first. And you mentioned also, people's mental health. I think that it's very important that we stay in tune with how people are feeling, whether people are getting depressed, whether they're dealing with anxiety, whether they're dealing with, stress from their families, whether they have parents that they're worried about getting sick, and my heart goes out to people around the world, because this is a global pandemic. And I look at New York right now. I'm super guilty of having a California mindset often. And so I think that this has been also helpful in us to have that empathy for people around the world in the different situations. I've never seen anything like this. So um, it's really from the employee experience. I think that you go from the human side first, and then you go into the solutioning with technology, which is incredible that we do have the technology today. Because I don't know what I would do if I didn't have this connection to people and being locked inside a house.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I really couldn't imagine it. And that's what's so, you talk about the technologies that you take at your disposal now. It's really remarkable. I mean, so this weekend, for the first time, we did a Google Hangout with like, 8 of my really good buddies who kind of, half of them live in the Bay Area, half live like kind of all over the country. And, Saturday night, all hanging out on a Google Hangout. It was like one of the, I never in a million years.
I bet you never thought you were going to do that before.
Never, ever. And it was hilarious. And my girlfriend kept taking photos of like, you guys are just a bunch of like giggly guys sitting here on this Google Hangout, like laughing at each other. But it's one of those things like, man, how lucky do we feel that we can do that stuff? Like I normally go visit my parents at least once a week, usually once or twice or 3 times a week. They live in Oakland, kind of down the street from me. Like I haven't seen them in, 2 weeks, like stuff like that. It's, all of those little things. And it really does affect your status quo. And normally people who are working in technology are kind of used to their routine. They're used to dealing with things in a certain way. And when you kind of remove that, the employees don't have the safety net of doing what they would normally do. They don't have a routine. They don't have these sort of things. And it's tough to work. Like it's tough to be productive, to do those sort of things. Julie, are you seeing that from your end?
Yeah. I think I'm seeing a little bit of both, right? So I'm seeing where people are having a super hard time disconnecting now because they're at home and their work, is at home as well. And so I think in real life, we all have these natural transitions when we're in an office all the time or not, right? If it's from, it's a commute where you might pick up the phone and talk to a friend, or there's something in your day, maybe it's midday when you grab a half hour and go to the cafeteria and grab lunch with folks or whatever. But there's these things that I'm actually worried about people not ever turning it off and thinking that because they're at home, there is some expectation that they're always on. So a lot of the things we're trying to do with employees is not just how do we get them to engage, virtually, in a more human way, whether that involves cats and dogs and other, parts of their family, but also that they're really thinking about how do they come up with a plan for their at-home work, right? Such they are really planful about disconnecting. And being able to turn off work for a little while. I know with my IT team in particular, their comment back is, "Oh, we're 24/7 all the time. This is how we live. This is what we're used to." And I'm like, I think there's a difference, right? Because when you have your normal routine, you've got these times where you are disconnecting. Whereas right now, it's very difficult to figure out when those times should be. So I think it's going to be interesting. And I will tell you a couple things. One is I've been fascinated because I've always been a Zoom with video person since the minute I've been using it. And I have had to pull teeth over the years, right, to get my, employees, like when we're doing a one-on-one or whatever the situation might be, to get them to turn on video. And you get a whole lot of, "Oh, I didn't do my hair today," or those types of things. And now it's kind of like, look, we're not forcing it, but we're really strongly encouraging people, not just with internal meetings, but with external meetings where you used to do audio only. Do it with a video because it changes the engagement and the conversation. It really does.
Sarah, have you found the, video meetings, change in meetings, meeting schedule, what are you doing to kind of deconstruct how your team is kind of working?
What's interesting is actually have a fair amount of the team that was purely remote before all of this. So it was interesting because there used to be a tension of people that were remote that felt like people who were in the office didn't understand. And now it's very interesting to see the people that have been, working from home. They feel very helpful to give a lot of tips to people that are adjusting. I didn't realize how much I actually liked going on a BART train every day, which I never thought I would ever say in my life. But I really like miss that sense of routine, and you find yourself just sedentary in front of a computer screen, which is why it's important to, remind yourselves that you need to stand up, walk around, schedule time to go to the bathroom, schedule time to eat lunch. These are things that you don't schedule when you're like going to the office maybe, but when you're at home. And I feel like people are scheduling more meetings right now. And so like, it's like, wow, there's a lot of meetings going on. And I'll share with the schedule. I think that you have to make a plan, and you have to make a plan with your family right now. For example, for me, I have made a plan, and I appreciate that Salesforce is supportive of putting my family first, where I'm going to be working basically half hours during the week because I have to split the distance learning time that's for my children with my partner. And so that's a very real thing that people that are dual income families with children, and you can't have childcare in and out of your home. So yes, there's a lot of disruption, but we have to be empathetic towards each other and change our schedules and make a plan. I think the most important thing is to make a plan and put yourself, on that plan, because you have to take care of yourself, because this is hard. I mean, Julie, you have a very hard job right now, being your CIO and the chief people officer, and you must see this a lot with your people.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's to your point, just even getting people to open up and kind of think about, hey, what strategy would work for you? Because I had a similar conversation with somebody that, really their daycare, officially Friday was the last day or whatever. And so this week, has a 2-year-old at home, and, trying to, sort of troubleshoot this whole thing. And I'm just like, you put that first over anything else, and we'll figure out the rest, because we're all here to help you fill in those gaps, right? So work with your partner, figure out what's going to work for you guys. And I mean, that's different than trying to do online teaching and homeschooling, which takes on a whole new element, and for which I personally am grateful right now. I have a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old. But, it's just getting people to open up about what their concerns are, and just giving them a chance to breathe and helping them realize that, whatever you need to do, come up with a plan, and then we'll work together on making that plan work, as opposed to assuming that you don't have that support, or that you don't feel like you can ask for that kind of help.
And I would add also creativity. This week, my team, I haven't done it yet, so we'll see how it goes. But on Thursday, we're doing a different kind of all hands, where we're going to the movies together, and this is where that mix of, the technology, our IT team is doing this incredible thing with streaming to help us have this, work for a very large team globally around the world. And then we're going to have a live Q&A with one of the directors of the film. And so it's like, people are like, oh, wow, that's something that everybody can participate in. And it's a little bit of a distraction from, the news, which a lot of people find that just the uncertainty and all of the inundation of media is stressful. And so I think being creative right now is also very important.
Great. That's a great idea.
So I had decided to do this. So we had a little bit of time to plan, but it's General Magic. And I'm very excited because I was inspired by that film from a product creation and an innovation mindset. And also that movie very much inspired me to how powerful a team can be when they're unified behind a vision. And also that perfect can be the enemy of good. And I think that that's, in this time, it's, bias for action. We all have to act and just try and be unified as a team. And so I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if you've seen the film.
Cool.
I love it.
No.
You should see it. Check it out.
No, yeah,
Right.
I haven't either. I mean, maybe I'll follow along.
You really, you should. You really should. It's a great film.
Well, obviously, we love Platform, and they're the amazing sponsor of the show. So I feel like half of the people that I know, I'll have someone to talk to about it with.
Yes, you will after Thursday.
So, well, and I want to, get back to something, Julie, that you said, you mentioned about the homeschooling piece, where you don't have to homeschool your 22 and 24-year-old. I beg to differ. I feel like I was talking to my girlfriend, and her family's been chatting a lot with their grandma, who's in her 90s and was around during the Great Depression and stuff like that. But it is interesting. Like, one of the things that I've really, and you see stuff flying all around the media all the time about millennials this, baby boomers that, this, that, and whatever. And I think, generally speaking, most of all, it's anyone who is younger has really never dealt with something that was like at a global scale before. Like, this is the first time ever. I mean, I think 9/11 would probably be the one thing that, people a little bit older than that have been through, that was, a global catastrophe that, impacted, the future. And obviously, the stock market in 2008, and the housing crisis. But like, this is navigating in uncertainty is really, really, really hard. And it's something that, as a leader, like when I was at West Point and in my time in the military, we spent a lot of effort on, is like, how do you lead in a time when you don't know what is going to happen? I'm curious, like, what have been some of the things that you've been doing to try to navigate during times that are so uncertain?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a few layers there. I mean, I will say that I'm probably the oldest person on this session by far, and truly none of the things that you talk about come close to this, right? I mean, never has a global crisis kind of kicked in where everybody was sort of very much impacted in the same way. So, I mean, I think this is unique in many ways, but some of the things that we learned during those other scenarios certainly help. So, I mean, I think it's about being as transparent as you can with everybody about the fact that none of us really know, for example, how long this is going to last. And so there has to be a willingness to, keep looking at, as this extends or takes more time, is really thinking about what are the next set of challenges that we're going to need to be in front of, right? As employees, I mean, when you think about people having their kids home from school through the remainder of the school year, okay, we're talking about an extended scenario that goes into, the June timeframe.
Yeah.
So I think it's recognizing how far we can see and trying to be in front of as much as we can, but kind of recognizing that this thing is going to take on, there's going to be new things that we need to lead through as this goes on. And depending on how long, folks end up being in this, sort of remote situation, and, or maybe they're not remote. Maybe you can go back into the office, but you still have children at home that need to be taught and that you need to be taken care of and need to be safe. So I think it's, seeing as far ahead as you can, but recognizing we can't see all the way to the end, and that we'll adjust and flex as necessary. Because I would even argue 2 weeks ago, what our thoughts were about folks working remote versus what they are today are two different things. As things escalated and certain government mandates were put in place, right? We had to accelerate a lot of things that we were working on, but that we hadn't really officially said, look, everybody go home. So I think it's seeing as far ahead as you can, but it's also being vulnerable with your teams, right? And recognizing I too am worried about my 82-year-old parents in San Carlos that, right now my son is still in the Bay Area, and so he's keeping an eye on them, but keeping an eye on them doesn't mean he gets to see them. It means he just needs to be checking in with them, and he needs to be dropping things off for them as necessary. So I think we're all learning a few new, leadership skills during this process, but some of it you can rely on, based on, what they say about great leaders, right? It's not when things are going well, it's when things aren't going as well and there is uncertainty or there is some sort of challenge, and helping people through those.
I couldn't agree more, Julie, with everything you said, and how, in these times, leadership has never been more important. And people just want, your leadership. They want you to be authentic and, vulnerable and real. And when you have uncertain information, it's important that you're transparent about that, because, transparency breeds trust. And that's what people need right now. They need to know they can trust you. that they can trust that you will tell them the truth, that they can trust you to keep them safe, that you can trust them to, once this is done, that you will get back to business, and that you will make the decisions of, if things need to change or not. And you establish that trust just by transparently and openly and regularly communicating and being truthful. And it's that simple. And by that, people, Julie, what you said is so true, that we have never had something like this.
Right.
That it just globally, everybody is going through the same thing. It doesn't matter if you speak Italian, if you speak French, if you speak Portuguese, it doesn't matter. Everybody's going through this, and my hearts go out to all the people in some of the most affected areas. And here in the United States, in New York, it's trending in a not great way. And my heart goes out to everyone, and we just have to be kind and empathetic to each other right now.
Yeah, one of the things we were just recently talking with Mark Settle, who's been a CIO a bunch of times, and one of the things that we had started talking about was this idea that like the vendors that you work with might not be able to make payroll. Like the customers that you count on might have to do layoffs. Like all the different parts of the ecosystem that you work and live in are affected by this thing. And it's a really challenging time when you have to kind of deal with those sort of things. I'm curious, like how are, both of you looking at your relationships with customers, your relationships with, with your vendors, and obviously the prospects that you're working with as well, of people who still need to have, a technology stack that is working for their employees, that is still, innovation is not going to stop just because, these things are happening. People are still working hard on trying to figure out how to do complex things. So I'm curious, like, how are you both looking at the relationships in and around, your business relationships with your companies, vendors, customers, and prospects?
So I'll jump in, and Sarah certainly. So I guess I have a lot of thoughts on this. My first thought is that I believe our relationships and our engagement with our customers or partners and or vendors or suppliers really shouldn't change if we have the right relationships. And what I mean by that is I have always been a proponent, because I've been in the security space for a long time, that the worst time to be reaching out to somebody is when they're in a crisis, right? That you want to build the engagement and the relationship and the trust way before that. And so I think what we're trying to do is make sure that we are absolutely there to support our customers, because as I said, there are some things that we offer in terms of additional VPN security and things like that can become really important to a company that has really never had a large part of their population work remote. And I know for us in the Silicon Valley, we're not used to that. But if you look at large industrial companies, they have an in-office, sort of model in most cases. And to suddenly take a large financial services or a large industrial and say, hey, now everybody needs to work from home, they not only have to figure out how technically they make that happen, but then also make sure that it happens in a secure way. So I think we're just trying to be really sure that our customers know that we're there to support them, and that if they need our help above and beyond support because they have to look at new ways of, solving a problem, we want to be there to help them. But this is not an opportunity to be trying to engage and say, hey, have you ever thought of buying this, that, or the other thing? So I do, I always have a real aversion to, sort of the ambulance chasing sort of mindset. On the flip side, I'm an optimist, and I know that we're going to come through this thing. And so it's really important that we're thinking about, hey, we've got to keep pace on the projects and the initiatives and the work that we're trying to get done. So as we're engaged with our suppliers and partners, right, we're making sure that we're saying, hey, look, these are the commitments that we've made and the project and the timeline that we're on. Or if for some reason we feel like that timeline needs to adjust based on the fact that, IT just needed to regroup for the last couple of weeks and make sure everybody could do their job from home, we're working with them to be very clear with them about, hey, look, this is what we're seeing in terms of potential, delays or whatever, so that we're as upfront with them as possible. Because as you said, everyone's kind of dealing with the same scenario, right? We all have our different parts of the supply chain or customer chain that, we all have to flex a bit on right now because there's a few unknowns.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say too that, part of the ambulance chasing kind of like, idea or mentality is like, there's just more of a right way and a wrong way to do it. Like I spent a portion of my weekend this weekend because I had some extra time, like looking at a bunch of different technology vendors for something that I needed done because like I had some extra time and I'm going to make a purchasing decision on those things in the very near future. Like there's still, because of the situation, like there's still going to be people that are looking for technology to solve their problems, and you can't kind of ignore those people either. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's a balance.
I was just going to completely agree and say that, people are looking more than ever right now how to go digital. And so if there's ways that technology can help them do that and the ways that they can innovate, like it's a must right now. And, a very human thing is that necessity is the mother of invention. And so we're all trying to innovate right now. One of the things a little bit different from a technology side that Salesforce is doing and many companies and people across many industries and even as consumers are doing are continuing to pay hourly workers right now during this time of disruption. And I think that's something which is very important as well to try to keep people on some form of regularity if you can, because this will end. We don't know when, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And trying to help people so they can still, buy their own groceries and have some normalcy in their financial status, especially for hourly workers. We feel that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to keep them wanting to come back, so that they don't feel like they have to go find something else, I think it can really help from a continuity perspective. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, because we're going to we are going to be starting back up, and we need to be ready to go. Yep. And if there's a way that technology, and if there's a way that right now can be a time to invest in your infrastructure, for CIOs, I think it's a great time to. I mean, Julie, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but investing in a company's infrastructure, often takes second seat to investing in like your outbound infrastructure. And this is a great time to take things that are on the backlog and say, oh no, this actually is a priority right now.
Yeah.
So investing in that employee experience and what it can mean. And I think there is opportunity to do things, and it's not about ambulance chasing. It's about kind of keeping us all sane right now too, because we're human and we like to solve problems and we like to make things better and we like to innovate and we like to, collaborate. And so I think that trying to find, there's no silver lining to this, but there's a positive attitude that we can have.
I love that. And I think that it's funny. We talked about this on a different podcast, on our marketing podcast, where we're talking about this is a great opportunity to bring your whole team together and start from scratch on like your customer experience of like, let's just like do the entire, let's get everything down onto paper again from scratch and say like, what is happening versus what we want. I think it's the same thing for employee experience. Like what, if we were to go back from scratch and say, we have a 100% digital employee experience as of right now, what would that look like? And go through the planning process of that. And instead of saying like, hey, we're going to spend an hour on this, it's like, hey, let's have a meeting that lasts, 8 hours. Bear with me here. But like an 8-hour meeting where we just all hang out for, on a call with our team for the whole day, and not have it be unstructured, and to kind of work through some of these problems that we've kind of been having for a long time. And yet we just didn't really have the time to go back to the basics and kind of work through that thought process.
I mean, maybe this is the new normal. Who knows? Like there are companies that like, Envision, and I think, GitLabs and a few others that are, they've started and always been all remote. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to, rethink our workforces and rethink our hiring strategies and rethink the employee experience. I mean, maybe it's an opportunity for us to be more global in our thinking, more inclusive in our hiring processes. Maybe there's a lot of opportunity here that it's just now we have no choice. And maybe there's things that can change. It's a matter of time to see. But there are things that we can do right now. Julie, I think you were going to say something. I think I stepped in front of you. I apologize.
No, you did not step in front of me at all. And frankly, you brought up what I was just going to say, that I guess there's two elements to it. The first is, I'm with you that there's a big difference between being able to sort of digitally enable your workforce to work remote versus truly consciously looking at a distributed company. And that by its core and kind of one of its guiding principles is there is no hub, right? That it is by nature, everyone is a remote worker. It's very conscious. The programs and policies are all built around that concept. So I think it does open our minds up considerably to, hey, how do we really just focus on finding the best talent no matter where they are, and making sure that our teams are able to engage virtually in a way that's very effective. But I do think there is this very different mindset to go to, hey, we really want to be fully a distributed organization. And I think that there's sort of spectrums along that line. I think what I'm more interested in and been a little bit more fascinated by is what kind of change could this have in terms of how much people fly around and travel. And this concept of things have to happen face to face as we engage with our customers and our partners. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see as this thing unwinds and we go back to whatever the new normal is. Has it changed our approach in terms of some of what I would call the kind of old school, sort of methods and mentality around how you engage and sell and go to market? Because it's been fascinating watching just what it meant to suddenly say to people, look, you're not traveling, and leverage tools like Zoom and virtual and figure out new ways to engage with your customers without it meaning that you have to physically fly around, right? So I'm kind of just curious to see how many of these things stick, and I hope a lot of them do.
Yeah, there is a tweet, like every CFO right now that questioned the value of travel, is getting the best A/B test ever, because you can see like what are the results. I think that travel is it will be very interesting to see. And I can speak for myself that I did not realize how much, I enjoyed that part of my job. I don't know if it was just like local routine of going to an office or being able to travel and go to different places. It's going to be very interesting to see what that new normal is.
So I had a situation where, and I think, similar to other companies when, we're sort of very quickly, this is going back into February, like what decisions do we need to make about travel and protecting our employees and our customers? And, initially it was, that, sort of typical communication around, hey, we're restricting any non-essential travel. And what's the next question? Well, what is essential travel?
Yeah, that's the next one.
I had a lot of conversations with people where they would say, I believe this is essential because it's customer facing. I'm like, well, it may very well be. And I am not necessarily the one to ask the question, but I would ask, is it something that could be done in a virtual way? Like, is there some activity that's taking place? Is there some sort of, whatever it might be, installation or whatever it is? Like, what is it that actually requires being on site face to face? And it was just interesting as people would start to kind of unravel that. And it's like, well, because I always go, and have these in-person meetings. And it's like, I think you should just think about what really is essential. And is there a way to do those same things virtually and have them be as compelling?
And I love how you think about that, because I think about what you said earlier in the show around you having to twist people's arms to get them to turn on webcams. So it was like they might have been able to do it, but they didn't want to do it that way. And that, didn't feel like that was comfortable. And now everybody's been in that medium of being on the webcam. And now you see more authentic interactions. Like there was I think Arnold Schwarzenegger did a tweet with like, he was in his kitchen with like a donkey or something.
So
did you see that one?
Yeah.
And,
Two donkeys,
and like, now you have celebrities doing these, on Instagram Live, they're doing these like concerts, and you get this very raw and real access to people that like, it's so interesting now.
Yeah.
And people feel more comfortable. They're like, oh, that's like a beautiful celebrity that's like showing up on Instagram live with, out any makeup. Wow, maybe I can do that too. And so I think it'll be very interesting from a human perspective to see where we end up, which is very authentic. And people, I'm very fascinated by this. And maybe there's some good that can come out of that.
Yep. I would be disappointed if at the end of this, everything just goes back to what the old normal was.
Yeah, I do still want to go on BART. Is that super weird?
Oh, no. I don't mean that. But I mean, like, if out of all this, then everybody turns their video off on Zoom again.
I'm joking because BART is BART.
Yeah, no, Bart's, I'm not a huge, but again, see, I'm old and I used to ride Bart when it was brand new. So that just goes to show.
Well, I think that this is the ultimate like time where you will see companies position themselves around certain things. And like, that will be like, like Basecamp's been doing this for years about, how they have this remote culture, but like other companies will go totally the opposite direction and say, hey, we're a 100% come into the office every day company, zero remote. And that's fine too. Like it's exciting, like people will be able to gravitate towards certain things that they like to do. And I think that's exciting. And I think, one of the things that's so exciting about this is the idea that you can run experiments. Like this weekend, I spent 4 hours and I was just doing, one of my friends is the CFO of a company, a big retail company, and they are very slow to innovate. And so I was working on a bunch of wireframes for him on like a new product, like 100% digital offering that I think is super interesting that they should pursue. And I sent them all over these wireframes and everything. And we're going to talk about it like next week. I just think like this is such, a time, and not to make light of all of the terrible things that are happening, but there is opportunities to run experiments for the first time in that kind of digital transformation lens to say, hey, let's do some things that are a digital only experiment for whether it's your product or employees or whatever. What are some of those experiments that you all are excited about seeing? What are some things that, either you're doing now? Like I love the digital movie. That's great. The digital screener there, but like, what are some other experiments that you're seeing people do or that you're excited about?
I wouldn't necessarily call them experiments, but I will say that we are finding this unique situation and opportunity to drive adoption and engagement in an accelerated way, because people don't have as much choice in front of them, right? So, I will tell you that we're a Microsoft shop, 365, but, we are a team shop as opposed to Slack or some of the other collaboration tools that are out there. And I will say that we have half the organization that has sort of adopted it, embraced it, and has taken advantage of that type of collaboration tool very effectively. But we had a part of the organization that we just didn't really see engage at the same level. And, over the last 9 months, we've been really trying to say, hey, how do we pull folks in, right? Because we really want to see more and more that this is the communication hub for the company, as opposed to email and other things. And it's been fascinating to just see over the last couple of weeks, right? The engagement level has just skyrocketed. So I don't know if any of these are new or creative ways, but I will see that it's accelerating people's adoption and engagement of things like, we have this AI tool for getting help from IT. And there's a variety of things where we've had, some early adopters always gravitate towards this stuff and make it happen right away. And that the other folks, we sometimes feel like we're kind of having to pull their teeth. And this has really sort of very quickly gotten people to realize, hey, I don't have a choice anymore. I can't just walk down to the service desk and get help. So, here's how I can engage and either help myself or be able to do it in a more automated way. So we're seeing some of those benefits that may have been by accident, but we'll take it.
Yeah, we've stood up a policy very quickly that allowed everybody to expense up to $250, work at home equipment and setups. And I think that was the first time of just saying, like, we don't have a package set, so here's a policy to go. I think there's a lot of learnings there, and it's interesting. Like, you look at what's sold out on Amazon and the stores. Webcams is one of them, right? Who would have known that there would be a run for webcams? And so I think that understanding how to have, and this sounds really basic, but like, what should an at-home setup be? right? How do we make that easy? Like you're just saying, Julie, how do you provide support for that? How do you have enough VPN capacity set up? How do you look at different geographies, like in India, where internet, a lot of people go to the office because the internet is so good in the office, and at home, they're often getting internet off their phones, and they could be with a roommate. There's different things that you're looking at. We've also set up phone tethering, and that was something that, okay, we didn't allow that, now we do. There was a lot of being very agile and setting up new processes that we're learning. I agree. Like, I wouldn't call them experiments, but I would just say, like, we just had to take action and learn along the way. And we're still learning. And I think that's something that we can all do, especially in this community. An incredible visionaries in IT can share with each other what you're learning, because it's very helpful.
And I'm glad you say community as well. And I wanted to touch on that before we get out of here. One of the things that, and obviously Salesforce spearheads a lot of this in local community engagement. And one of the things that is so crazy about these times is a lot of that is just in-person work, right? Like a lot of that, those volunteer hours and the 111 program and all those things are dedicated to in-person and supporting communities locally. And now when you can't go outside and do those sort of things, it's tougher. But what a lot of those organizations lack is good digital infrastructure. And it was just something that's been kind of rattling around in my mind, just about how many organizations like local nonprofits or things like that could really use some help on their digital infrastructure. And like, I feel like this is the perfect time to be able to support organizations in a place where they probably really need the help.
I agree. And I think that it's something that this community, we're so used to doing things in person, like you said, and helping each other is just so important, especially right now.
Yeah, and we've been talking, and as I said, we don't have the same sort of platform, no pun intended, that Salesforce has, right, in terms of rallying resources and that kind of stuff. But, again, trying to figure out how do we replace some of that face-to-face activity that we used to do, right? We're just down the street from Second Harvest, in San Jose, right? We can just walk over there, right? And we constantly have a stream of people that are there, but now they're like, please stay away, right? So it's getting creative on other ways that we can help those, important community service things, and it's just, that's where we do need to probably get more creative on our side, but we are definitely committed to doing whatever we can to help.
Okay, before we get out of here, just any final thoughts? Thank you both for your time. This has been, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and we'll definitely share, best practices with the IT Visionaries community. If anyone ever has anything, just, feel free to email us anytime or shoot us a note. But any final thoughts?
The only thing I would have added, which I'm thrilled that we already touched on, is what is the lasting change out of this? What are the positive things that we take out of this and we learn from, and we don't forget, and we make change, right?
And I would just say that I want this to be over sooner than later. So I ask everybody to practice the social distancing and the sheltering in place and all of that, because I want to get through this sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Flatten the curve. Let's do this.
Flatten the curve. Well, thank you both for coming on. We'll have to, maybe we'll do a check-in again here in a month and see how, well, first of all, we need to know what happens for Thursday movie day. I got
to share that. And I mean, I'm just impressed with myself right now. I have a microphone, a webcam. I feel like very professional right now. So I want to use this equipment more. This is very fun. Get to play with more toys.
Well, the invitation is always open to come and hang on IT Visionaries. That's for sure. Well, thank you both. I appreciate it. This was great, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Julie. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform.